Hello, everyone. Here we're going to study yin yang and the 5 elements. It's a core subject in my feng shui and macrobiotic courses. I'll explain why. But if you like, it's a kind of language that brings everything together, people, humans, with their environment, with the food they eat, with each other. And so I would think of it as a kind of unifying language that helps us make connections. And through those connections, we can start to look at how we can empower ourselves, or sometimes just how we can succeed better when we're facing challenges. If we can understand the challenge and our own responses from a 5-element perspective, we often get ideas and possibilities that can come up to help us work through those challenges better. So I'm going to use a presentation. Let me just share my screen and here we are. So basically, a starting point is that in nature, we have polarity and movement. So we might have high air pressure over the Atlantic, low air pressure over Spain or Germany, and that high air pressure is going to try and move to the low air pressure, and it would create a wind across the UK and Ireland and France and Portugal on its way to Central Europe. So, but what we could say is the higher the difference, the bigger the polarity, the stronger the movement. And the polarity is yin-yang, that we're going to look at. And the movement, we could say, is our own qi. Qi is a bit like our own energy. It's a sort of life force, we might call it. It's in Chinese, it's considered the vital breath, but it's the movement. It's the movement. So polarity is breathing in, filling up, breathing out all the way, emptying. But if I make a big in-breath and a big out-breath, there's a lot of movement of air in and out. So lots of examples, the tides and creating the currents, the way that we work in life, full and satisfied, empty and hungry. These are all examples of polarity. Maybe the one that we can easily experience is a sauna and then jumping into cold water. Huge polarity, but it creates a lot of movement inside. So when we're thinking of yin-yang, we can think of polarity, and the more polarity we have, the greater the movement, particularly in terms of qi. So if we have periods of great relaxation, meditation, mindfulness, and then other periods in the same day of intense activity, maybe we're running, playing sports, highly active, busy working, and then we switch into the yin mode, the relaxation, and then back to yang. This will create polarity and movement through our day. Although people probably think of it as active to just be yang all the time, that's not really in the polarity idea creating as much movement. Similarly, if we're just relaxed all the time, if we just hang around meditating all day, we're not really going to experience the same kind of stillness, in my opinion, as if we have the polarity. If we have moments of running and exercise, and then moments of meditation, that polarity creates a kind of contrast and a bigger appreciation of each one. So we're looking to manage yin-yang through our days, weeks, months. We're also thinking about when we want to use this more and create more movement, but there'll be other times, maybe we're not feeling well or we're sick for a while, where we don't want the polarity and movement. So in those times, often we're trying to reduce the polarity, create greater stillness, So maybe we're spending more time in bed, we're lying down, we're eating kind of in the middle, not very extreme yin or yang foods, where our lifestyles become very moderate and contained for a while. And there we will slow down our qi. And often we do that naturally, simply to allow ourselves to heal, to provide the best environmental state for healing. So let's have a look at the symbol. This is an older diagram. A couple of things to notice. It's been divided into 8 sections, and each section has a trigram, these 3 lines called a trigram, and the broken lines represent yin, the solid lines represent yang. And in this representation, the bottom of the trigram is on the outside. So we have an analog progressive movement, a curved line, where if this is our winter, we're coming through to the spring. As this white yang area gets larger, we're becoming more and more yang until we get to the top, where there's maximum yang, and that's our summertime, and then we go back again. More and more yin, the black part is increasing. So the black and the white and the line is an analog progression, we could say. Meanwhile, these trigrams around are more digital. So this one is all yang, solid lines. There's no in between the solid and the broken lines. So this one with all the broken lines just switches to all yin. But what we do have, because of 3 lines, is a kind of progression from one state to the other. We're going to look at this more soon. Just a quick aside, possibly that diagram came by, we used to measure our year. Our calendar was basically put a big stick in the ground, big pole, measure the shadow at the summer solstice, it's going to be at its shortest. And then as we move through towards the winter solstice, it's going to get longer, and then it'll start getting shorter. If we do 1 year, once we know the difference between the two, the winter and the summer, how long this line is, the following year we would see, okay, the shadow's here, so I'm only a quarter of the way through the year, or here we are, it's halfway through the year, and so on. So if we do that and we create a circle, here there's 24 radial lines, and if we were to plot the change of the shadow, so here it's getting longer, how the shadow's lengthening, we end up with this kind of curved line. We have to be we have to be quite far up north for that to work. It's not going to work anywhere near the equator, but or south in the southern hemisphere. But we would end up with something like this. And one theory is that the yin-yang symbol simply, the Tai Chi simply came about from people having a graphical representation of the year, and that was used as a kind of basic calendar. How much has the shadow changed, and therefore where are we in the year? It wouldn't need any reading or writing skills, it's just totally graphic. So early yin-yang seemed to be mostly about calendars and time. So we have yin being the night, yang the day, yin being the new moon, yang being the full moon, yin being the winter, yang being the summer. So these 3 big cycles we live inside were described through yin-yang, and rather than saying like the day, full moon, and summer, we could just say yang. And so we could say early yin-yang was really an appreciation of the cycles of nature, and therefore frequencies and time. We measure time by where the sun is in the sky, or how many rotations of the sun have happened before or since a big event. after a while, possibly 11th century BC, the yin yang started to be applied to the sunny side of the mountain and the shady side of the mountain. So in the northern hemisphere, the south side of the mountain would be yang and the north side yin. The south side would be similar to the summer. It would have the activity, the growth, the butterflies, the bees, the birds, etc., the flowers. The north side would be the cooler, darker side and have more of the quiet aspects of nature. But something interesting happened here. Time and space were connected. So I think it's the only one I really know over such a long span of time. The only way of looking at life and everything where time and space has been connected up from near the beginning. And we'll see it makes lots of interesting things in our perception of life if we do it through this model. So we're kind of coming back to those three lines again, the trigrams, but Sanchai is this idea that above us is yang. So the sun is our big yang in our solar system. It creates light and heat and solar energy and has the biggest gravitational pull. So that's the big yang, and we can feel it. If we go to the beach on a sunny day, we'll feel it all over our skin. We can sense it, and we know the difference between night and day. You know, it's very clear, and how we respond. So as the sun comes up in the day, our environment becomes more and more yang. And then as it starts to go down, it becomes increasingly yin. And interesting, two things here. One is the rising sun, the morning sun, has a slight blue frequency, which acts as a stimulant to our mind, activates us. As we get into the yin part of the cycle, we become, the light becomes slightly more yellow, orange, and that has a relaxing effect. It actually does make us more yin. One of the reasons why it's not so good to be looking at blue screens late at night, because it starts to confuse the mind into thinking it's the morning again. So when that's happening, it's setting up a rhythm, a routine. And part of that, reason why we could also say it's yang, more than just the sun being hot, is that it becomes a big motivator in our life. You know, we wake up with the sun. Okay, we need to get up, out of bed, start doing things. If we're in the hot country, we have to finish before the midday sun and go home and be in the shade and rest. Or if we're up north in a colder climate, you know, in the winter especially, we have a limited day. You know, it's going to get dark at 4, so we have to get everything done and home by 4 whilst we still have the light. And therefore, we could say this cycle of yang, the sun, is a big driver in life. And it's not just the day cycle, it happens with the seasons. We have to get our harvest in the autumn, so we have food for the winter. And we'll see it happens with the moon as well. So what we basically have are these 3 lines, trigrams, and they relate to what's above us. That's the sun, the moon, the stars. And then the middle line is humans and everything horizontal to us, we could say, other humans. Nowadays, I think people would include cats and dogs and horses. And then we have below us, which is the earth. If we just have a look at this for a moment, we have a lot of energy coming from the sun. We can feel it easily and see it. But also we have yin qi in the earth. And that energy helps grow plants and all kinds of things. Harder to feel, but it's still there. So we'll see in a minute. We work with both those yin and yang energies, but when we're upright, then there's a natural yin-yang polarity between the sun and the earth. And apart from kangaroos, koala bears, and I think one or two other creatures, we're one of the few with a vertical spine. Most animals have a horizontal spine. And perhaps one of the differences that makes is that we're inside this yin-yang polarity. If we want to switch off that movement, if we want to calm it down, we just lie down. You know, if we're getting a bit overwhelmed and too much is going on, too much polarity, just lie down on the sofa for a while and already things start to calm down. Obviously, when we want to sleep, we do the same. So you can make your own trigram, because if the sun is partly how we see time, it's our reference to time, we could ask ourselves on the top line of the trigram, am I more yin or yang? If I was to be rushing around a lot, very time conscious, always like to be on time, but seem to have slightly too much to do in the time we have, we'll probably have a yang relationship with time. If I'm easygoing, there's always tomorrow, there's always next week, you know, quality is better than doing things quickly, you know, I'll just take my time, relax, then my relationship is more yin with time. The middle line, we said, was our human relationships. So if I find other people very exciting, stimulating, motivating, inspiring, I'll probably put a yang line there. If I get really excited at the thought of going out to a social event, you know, that's all going to be yang. If I'm the kind of person that likes other people, but I enjoy calm, quiet relationships, I can just sit next to someone. We don't have to talk, but if we do, that's fine too. But just being around people's nice, but there's no big need to get all busy and active. Then my relationships would be more yin. And then bottom line is our relationship to the earth. So that could be where we live. If I was in the middle of a busy city, you know, lots of activity in the street outside, and I can just step out of my door and then there's cafes and movement and activity, that's more yang. If I'm somewhere very relaxing and quiet, maybe in a rural area, then that would be more yin. It could also relate to how I move across the earth. If I like to do a lot of running and physical activity on the earth, that's more yang. If I'm more into observing the earth, sitting by the riverbank, you know, that's more yin. So you can make a trigram to relate to how you're feeling with these really three big influences of life. For now, it's going to change, and just sort of get an idea of where you are. Whatever lines you choose, there'll be one of these 8. You can see the name for the trigram, and then you can look up more about it and see if you relate to that. So in terms of this sun and earth energy, we can also see how these meridians of qi in Chinese medicine start to form, because around our eyes, we have the beginning of 3 of our big, long meridians. So our eyes is where we see light, the sunshine. And these 3 meridians, front, sides, and back of the body, if we're out on the beach for a while, they would all be in the sun at different times, depending whether we're standing or lying, etc. So these sunny meridians are all the yang meridians. Meanwhile, if we're standing on the earth, we have that yin qi of the earth coming up the inside of our legs and then going inside our torso. So that's the yin energy of the earth, but the inside of our legs are mostly going to be in the shade anyway, not so much direct sunlight. And certainly once they come inside the body, then much less exposure to sun. So these would be, they're the same meridians, including in the 5 elements, which we'll look at later, but these are the yin versions. So we have yang versions and yin versions. And then also we have our arms, and there we have the polarity, the yin yang, we could say, of the expansion of our lungs and heart and the contraction. So the expansion is considered more fiery, the contraction more metal. And these all exist on our arms coming from our chest. The yin ones are around our armpits, and they're coming down the shady side of our arms. So whether we're holding them like this or down by our sides, they're the yin shady meridians. And then we have from our hands coming up to our head, these yang sunny meridians of the same elements. We'll come back to that in a little while, but just to move on, we can learn a lot about yin yang just by studying the characters. So if you're Chinese, this will be easy for you, or anything that uses Chinese characters, any part of the world. Otherwise, we're reliant on translations. But this would give you some idea of what the ideograms themselves tell us about yin yang. So practically, how might we use it? We could say that yin is things that, in terms of food, help us feel cooler, more relaxed, refreshed. And those would be things that are juiced. So if we took a carrot, beetroot, and apple, we can try all these cooking methods with them. They work for everything, very versatile. So if I took a carrot and juiced it, to me, it's more refreshing and cooling than actually eating the carrot raw. So we could say that juicing apple, beetroot, and carrot juice is going to be at the top on the yin. Then we'd have eating them raw. Then we have pickling them, and then we have the cooking. So the hotter the cooking and the more it's cooked, the further we go down towards yang. So light steaming is still a bit on the inside, but if we're coming down to baking or deep frying or something, then we're much more into that energizing, warming yang territory. But you can try it by experience and see what you think. Similarly, we can make ourselves more yin and yang, different activities. If you just go to sleep an hour earlier every day, you'll start to become more yin. You get more relaxed. Meditation, resting are all good forms of yin. Depending on the books and the films, but reading and watching films could be yin too, compared to being active. So, running and cycling and doing sports and boxing and all those things would be much more yang. If it's something that involves danger, like these fighting type things, it's going to be even more yang. So if we're generally feeling a little bit weak, cold, deficient, depressed, introverted, quiet, slow, these would suggest that we're at that time more yin, relative to if we were feeling more heart, excessive, i.e. kind of lots of energy and fidgeting and can't stop moving, angry, stressed, extroverted, loud, and urged to do things quickly, to speed up. These would all be states that we could think of as being more yang. And whether we're yin or yang, it doesn't matter. That's fine. If we're happy, it's all great, and just carry on. But sometimes we become too yin or yang in a way that we're not really enjoying. Maybe we're becoming a bit too depressed and introverted, and we're thinking, I don't really like this yin. Or opposite, maybe we're too angry and stressed and rushing too much. And we might think, I'm not really enjoying this yang. So what do we do? To become more yang, we need more activity, movement. We would eat cooked, warming foods, being proactive, going out, being social, starting new things, and probably be in spaces that are larger and have room to move. we can exercise and do things, spread out. To become more yin, we would get more sleep and rest and relaxation. We might receive massages or healing or Reiki, acupuncture, etc. We might get someone to help us, whether it's with cooking, cleaning, chores, etc. Eating cooling or calming foods, as well as certain kinds of richer foods, having more drinks and liquids, getting involved with meditation, slow stretching, spending time alone, and seeing if we can sort of find periods of deep contemplation. So we can adjust ourselves, basically. We can help ourselves become more yin or more yang, depending on what we're trying to achieve. Also with the homes, we could say lots of plants, like I have here, help generally feel more yin. It affects our parasympathetic nervous system, which puts us into a more yin, resting, healing mode. If we wanted to be more yang, we would try to find spaces where we can be active, that are colorful, bright, stimulating, all those things. Okay, so then we come on to the 5 elements. So here we have basically 4 elements. We could say winter, spring, summer, autumn. Earth can also be in the center, but when it's put in the circle like this, it comes between fire and metal, and it's basically late summer, around August time. And it goes back really as far as yin yang, and it's could be called the 5 elements, 5 phases, 5 transformations. I'm going to use 5 elements. Is probably not the best word because it's a bit of a crude translation, but as it turns out, it's become the most popular, commonly used word. So I'll stick with that, even though it's not the best one. Anyway, so with the 5 elements, if we go all the way back to these oracle bones, dated sometimes up to 3000 BC, archaeologists say it might be the first human writing. And what happened is they would take something like a shoulder bone of an ox, write on the coming days, and then put it in the fire. And if a crack of the bone went through one of the days, they would then see which day it was, and it would be a kind of form of divination to try and see when the best time to do something could be. So the way it works is that we have these 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, but each one has a yang and a yin version. So we then, in this case, have 10 types of qi, which is known as the 10 heavenly stems. And if we put that into our circle, we now have, sometimes wood can be called tree, just again, different translations, different uses. But so we could have 2 versions: yin tree or wood, or yang tree or wood. And this is important because each element shows us a direction of movement, and through that we could say that the yang version is that movement quickly, the yin version is slowly. So here this wood is energy moving up, and if it's moving, let's say I was working in an office, I'm not, but and someone said something to me and I reacted to it quickly, it would be like my wood energy would be rushing up to my head. That would be yang wood. And maybe I would say something before I'd really thought about it, react and quickly say that could be a good thing. It could, sometimes that's useful, but sometimes it's not. It might get me into trouble. If it was yin wood, it would just sort of meander up more slowly, and I would have time to maybe I just won't say anything right now. I'll write an email when I can think about it better, or if I'm going to say something, I'm just going to say it slowly and calmly and so on. So it's each element we could say as a yin or yang version. Let's just a quick look. We need to just go back for a minute to here, just to get the better idea of the direction. So this, these areas here, these yang meridians we were looking at, and their yin pairs, the green ones are the wood that we said was the up, and the orange is the earth. So here on the body, they're basically controlling the parts of our body that help us move up and down, our hips, but knees especially, and ankles and feet. So when we want to go to a squat, we're going to use these meridians will be, the energy of them will be going past our muscles and joints that control that movement. If I want to expand, I'm most likely to open my arms out and hands and so forth. And so the expanding meridians, the fire meridians, are on my arms. And then if I contract, I'm closing my hands and can make myself small, but that's also on my arms. So we expand and contract. The water is coming down my back, but that's and up the inside of the leg, but that's more to do with readjusting the chi of the others. So we have these different movements, and you can experience them yourselves with different through exercise and foods and so forth. But the point here is that how does this become useful? What's the point? Let's say someone had some inflammation in the colon, on their skin, acid reflux, inflammation at the top of the stomach, anywhere they had inflammation. Inflammation we would think of as fire, and if it's sort of hot, swollen, and itchy, it's probably yang fire. So we would then think, okay, if I've got too much yang fire, what could I do? So first thing is we probably don't want to add to it. So yang fire would be in food, it would be coffee, alcohol, sugar. So we might see whether we need those foods. They're all acid forming as well, so probably not great for inflammation. In feng shui, it would be trying to work in a very busy space, or trying to not getting sleep, but maybe because our bedroom is too fiery. So we would look to see if we could moderate our own yang fire. Fire is always being fed by the one before, tree or wood, so it's always going in a clockwise direction. So we would want to make that tree more yin. So tree is activity, work, doing things, saying yes to things. So maybe we don't want a full-on yang rushing around, too much to do. We want to make that a bit more yin. We're still going to have the tree, but let's just calm it down a bit, not work so hard, not do so many things, so that the tree that is feeding the fire is more yin, and then helps the fire be more yin. Afterwards comes the earth. So if we use earth, would be more things like spending time with the family, relaxed time with the family, or close friends, but it could be just going out on the earth, walking barefoot on the grass, or gardening, all those things. And we would use that to try and calm down the fire. Ultimately, in this situation, we probably want to get to the opposite, away from the fire towards the metal and water. Also, yin versions would be good. So we might use meditation to do that. We might use mindfulness, yin yoga, qigong, tai chi. Any of those things would help move us to this side of the circle, and in a more yin way. Plus, we might also then consider trying to organize our life a bit better, so we didn't have this kind of tree fire rushing around situation. That would be more metal. Water would be more philosophical. Do I really need to do all these things? You know, in the bigger perspective of life, you know, maybe I just don't need to work so hard. Maybe there's more to life than rushing around doing things all day long. So we would try to move across to here to embrace more of these types of qi. Another example would be someone's not sleeping well, so that's water, nighttime, probably too yang. So the evening would be metal, and sensible thing to do would be let's make our metal more yin. Have a relaxing evening. Don't watch horror films. Don't get into big arguments. You know, enjoy the evening, maybe have some moments of meditation and mindfulness or qigong or anything like that, just to let that yin metal naturally feed into the water, keep the water yin so that we get the good sleep. In this example, interestingly, if we get up early and are quite yang, we do some exercise, maybe go out for a strong walk in that blue frequency light we talked about, then that physical wood activity actually helps us sleep better the following night. In this example, we're not trying to get across to the fire at night. We don't want the fire in our evening because that's the opposite of good sleep. One last quick example would be mild to moderate depression. Metal can be more introverted, sometimes feeling a bit low in its extremes. And so what would we do? So we probably this time do want to get to the other side, the tree and the fire. So then we're going to use water, meditation, etc., to help us move out of the metal, mindfulness, philosophy, could be therapies, but doesn't have to be talking. You know, in this theory, Reiki, Shiatsu, all these things would be excellent at moving away from that metal. Then when the person's ready, more physical activity with the word, positive thinking, more of an optimistic approach to life would be embraced here. And from there, trying to get across to the fire, well, that would be meeting up with friends, being more social, a bit more expressive, talkative. Once we're there, exercising and being social, we're probably in a better space, according to the research, than we would be with most available medication. I mentioned water, but now one of the therapies that people seem to be having some success with is these cold water dips or cold water swims. And that seems to very much get people out of the metal and releases happy hormones, and people get to feel quite a lot different. All right, so there's always going to be a yin-yang version of each element, and we can use this a lot to try and understand challenges we have and then find solutions. Each one of these, there's lots of things we can do in feng shui to change the quality of our house using the 5 elements as a guide to strengthen one of those elements. So if you felt you needed more wood energy in life, more of this up, proactive energy, make things happen, get things done, just fill your house with plants. Already that's going to make a difference. But you know, beyond that, you could use green colors, pictures of nature, and so forth. So we can take this is basically, if you think about it, a clock. So we're going night, morning, midday, afternoon, evening. It's a lunar calendar, new moon, rising moon, full moon, descending moon. And it's a solar calendar. We've got winter, spring, summer, late summer, autumn. And we can superimpose that on the body. And what we would find is that winter nighttime water energy would be where our bladder and reproductive organs are linked to our kidneys. Where our morning, springtime wood energy is, would be where our liver and gallbladder are. Where our summer, midday fire energy is, would be the heart. That's linked to the small intestines below. And then we would have the earth would relate to our stomach, spleen, pancreas, and then we'd have the metal relating to the colon, and we could say the lungs through the diaphragm. So all of this would suggest that our body, it has its, we see it in space and we understand it in space, but what we don't often do, which I think is reasonably unique to Chinese medicine, is also explore it in time. What are the frequencies and the cycles of our body, and how do we understand those, and then how can we make those work well when they're not working so well? For us, this can seem a bit mysterious because we can't see time in the same way. We experience it, but we can't see time in the same way we see space. We can also apply the 5 elements to faces, and that's a popular form of face reading, which is interesting. And to human body shapes, we can do it. And then here we're going to look at it in terms of what I was just talking about, the map. We looked at those organs, but what we see here is that this liver and gallbladder, this wood energy, helps energy move up, and those organs are influenced by the energy moved up. So it's two-way. They're going to work with their neighbors, the other middle organs, the stomach, spleen, and pancreas over here, which is influenced by energy moving down and influences the energy moving down. So these two work with the up and down chi. It's all our middle organs just below our ribs. And then at the bottom of our ribs, not below. And then meanwhile, we have another pair. We have the heart and small intestine moving chi outwards, out to the surface of our skin and beyond. And they're paired up with the lungs and colon that move the energy back in again. So almost like having a sort of oven, fire inside, and then the oven's the metal, and then we can open the door, let the fire out and the heat, but when it's going down and we need to build it up, we can close the door. And so in our body, we can express energy out with our fire. We can be not only doing things, particularly if we couple it with the wood, but we can also be very expressive and so on. But we can't let the fire go out, so we need the metal to control that fire, to keep it alive for the long term. And therefore, metal often becomes associated with endurance and longevity and persistence. The metal energy is that inner strength. It's the ability to keep these energies strong inside us, but not let them all burn out quickly. So sometimes when we have a lot of metal energy, we kind of appear a bit aloof or more observant, less interactive. We're slightly more contained, and maybe we're not reacting and chatting and engaging to the same extent that someone who's being more fiery would be. And then finally, we have the water. So that's kidneys and bladder and reproductive organs. That's just energy moving freely in any direction. Because when we're asleep, this energy is very important at nighttime. It's maybe one of its functions is to redistribute the chi and get it all ready for another day, so that then these energies can be activated again and engaged. Interesting, if we think about our own journey into this world, as a fetus, in the latter stages, we had our hands up here by our heart, hands and heart developing. We had our wrists close to our lungs, had our elbows close to our colon, and then we had our knees up by our middle organs, and our feet and ankles up by our bladder and reproductive organs. So in Chinese medicine, you find great meridians and points on the hands for the heart and heart governor. We similar with the wrists for the lungs, the forearm and elbow for the large intestine, the knees for the liver, spleen, and stomach, and gallbladder meridians with lots of good points. And then our feet for the bladder and kidney meridians, and again, lots of good points. So you can sort of, it all ties together, it all works together in a very interesting way. We can look at the qualities of the 5 elements. Each will have a yin or yang version to it, but you might read this and feel that one of them kind of you can relate to more for yourself. There may be the work you, possibly this wood energy, and there may be the earth you, the home weekend person. But you should be able to relate to some of these more than others and see if you feel that some of these energies are more prevalent to you, more prevalent inside you at different times of life or just different times of the week, etc. And sometimes we might feel that one's missing and we want to encourage it more within us. So then we can use a lot of the 5 element remedies to help that along. For example, we want more water, it's meditation, mindfulness, philosophy, inner peace, etc., embracing stillness. If it's more of the wood, it's exercise, positive thinking, starting new projects, getting out, doing things. Fire would be social activities and dancing and expressing and talking. It could include seeing a therapist because talking therapy is in a way a form of fire. Stability, earth would be stability, and trying to have our feet on the earth, be practical, down to earth, and methodical, all those qualities. Good family relationships, good long-term friendships. Metal would be organization, being self-disciplined, having integrity, doing things well, and persistent, always getting to the end, completing things, and maybe living in a kind of structured way, more of a structured way. So any of these things would then help us get more of that element. We'll see later that we can use homes and foods and all kinds of things to increase it further. So just going on to another aspect now, this Man Fu He then brought together everything we've been learning so far. So he took the basic yin-yang symbol and put into it the 5 elements with the trigram. So do you remember all the way back near the beginning, we had the yin-yang symbol divided into 8 with the trigrams around. So that's been taken, the trigrams have been brought into that. There's 2 sequences. Here we're looking at the later heaven sequence. And so we have our 8 trigrams. If you remember the top lines, the sun, moon, frequencies, cycles, time. Middle line is humans, and the bottom line is the earth. It's our relationship to those things. And at the same time, we have our 5 elements. Because now there's 9, including the center, some of the elements get doubled up. So we have 2 words, 3 earths, and 2 metals. And and then on top of that, each of these 9 variations of energy, we could say, have a yin and yang version to it. So we tend to use this a lot in feng shui. We can use it in many other aspects of life. And there's a nice metaphor here that Takashi Yoshikawa liked to use a lot. He was someone I studied a lot with. So if we took the cycle of a plant and think about that probably all of nature has a similar cycle, including humans. So there's germinating. So if the seed is in the right conditions, dark and wet, the germ of the seed inside the whole seed will start to eat the fruit of the seed around. So we can call that germinating. That relates to this water north. Remember, we're always going to have time and space. So we've got the times, which each section relates to, and the directions in space that it relates to. This is important because in feng shui, we can put this on top of a house plan, align north with north, and then we can see the different aspects of the house that we're looking at. Okay, so here the germinating has started. That's the winter, water north, and then sprouting occurs. That's where a little shoot will come, the beginning of the root into the earth, and the beginning of the sprout at the top. So it's going from self-contained inside a seed to now connected to the environment it's going to try and live in. And then from there, we'll go to rapid growth. So the roots are growing under the ground, the shoots are coming up on top of the ground, lots of green growth and movement. That's our wood energies here. And then of the east and the southeast. Then we get to that's the springtime. Then we get to the summer, the fire, the flowering. Now our plant is opening up, blossoming, attracting bees, there's smells, there's colors, it's being noticed. And from there we go to ripening, if it was fruits or vegetables, depending what it is, but many of them, think of the grapes on the vine, in this late summer period, this earth energy, they're just getting sweeter. They're not growing, that's happening on the left. But now they're getting sweeter, and if we're eating them, for us, it's better quality, we think. And then finally, if it's a farming situation, then we have our harvesting. So we have to get the food off the lands and get it ready for the winter so that we can survive the next winter when the snow comes. But if it's not human farming, the seeds will then start to drop onto the earth here and then start to get squashed and rot back into the earth so that they're all ready to go for another cycle. So we could think of this as a metaphor of life in general. Lots of things that we do have this similar kind of cycle, small variations, but you'll see a lot of similarity. We're saying that we're nature, we're basically mostly water, it's just the flow of water coming through us. It's not our water, it's just nature's water, and it's just coming through us all the time, passing through. And that's mostly what we are. Even the rest, it's going to be food, oxygen, other things that we're taking in, pass through us, and that's basically makes us natural beings that are really just processing nature, coming in, some kind of transformation inside, and then coming out again. So if we think of that, if we think about life, we're probably always in some kind of similar cycle. Right now, we could ask ourselves, if I could go around this cycle many times, where am I? Am I in a sort of adding quality to life, nothing new, same thing, but I'm improving it, I'm reaping the rewards of it, harvesting? Am I starting new things? Am I at the beginning of the whole journey of the whole cycle? Or maybe I'm flowering, maybe I'm attracting attention and success, my social media is going really well. Where am I in my cycle at the moment? And of course, it's the same with humans. When we're born and in childhood, we could say we relate to the water. Then we come to teenage years. That's the northeast earth, the mountain. Then we come to this thunder, wood, eastern energy. It's the going out, making our way in life. And then we're growing our career and developing ourselves. That's this southeastward. So the wind is the trigram. Then we have our fire, the being social, outgoing, expressive, becoming known for what we do. And then from there, we will have our earth energy, adding quality to life. Maybe in fire, we're rushing around, lots of friends, but earth, we're settling down to a few really good friends and more time with family and so on, or maybe we're having children. Then at some point, hopefully we get to a point where we are in our harvesting phase. We're getting money for what we do. We're feeling more comfortable financially. Maybe we're saving money. We could be retiring. All these things would be happening in this Western metal phase, which relates to the lake. And then finally, we'd come to this metal northwest, relates to the heavens. But having gone all the way around the cycle, we now have the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge, and we could help someone else at an earlier phase. We could become a mentor, teacher. You know, someone here doesn't necessarily know what's coming, but if we've been around the cycle, we do from our own experience. So have a think. Where do you think you are in this cycle? Where are you now? Where would you like to be? How do you get there? You know, if we're following the cycle, what has to happen? And if we think of these elements, could we introduce the elements we need to get to the next place? So maybe we're right at the beginning of something. We're in our free thinking moment. And we would like to be up here, but we've got to have the activity, the growth to get there. So do we need to embrace this wood energy more to get us from here, from the water, let's say, all the way up to the fire? And if so, then why not, you know, start to think how to bring more of that wood energy into our life. So we could apply it to anything really. Here, a project, let's say writing a book, something I've done many times. We might be just thinking about what is it, it's in our head, we can change it, it's very fluid, very watery, big vision, you know, talking to people, getting new ideas, all those things. Then at some point, we're actually going to do it, we commit to it, it's going down on paper or in our computer. And if we're lucky, we get a contract to write from a publisher and so forth. And then this is wood energies, the doing it. We have to write our pages every day. We have to get the words out of our mind onto paper. We have to work with it, and it's creative, it's productive, and so on. Then fire would be trying to communicate what we're doing, trying to express it, trying to tell people about it. If we hadn't got a publisher, now we might be looking for an agent or a publisher directly. But we've got to basically sell ourselves. That's fire energy. Then if it's a book, once we've got a publisher, hopefully they'll have a good editor, because this Southwest earth energies, that adding quality, and that in a book would be good editing. I'm sure you've read books that are just really a bit too long, you know, they're a bit padded out. Some bits you just have to start skipping the pages. And I'm sure we've all seen films that, you know, 3 hours when they could have been 2, and a much better film for it. Or if you're old enough like me, you know, in the 70s, we had triple albums by bands. I can't think of any that were really great, but many of them would have been a better double album than a fantastic single album. They just took, you know, the best songs out of the triple. So that's this earth quality, the editing, the improving quality. And then we'd have to finish the book, you know, finish it to the standard we were happy with. Metal can be a bit perfectionist sometimes, but we do need to say it's finished and handed over on time and so forth. So that's there. Again, like before, once we've written the book, we'll know how to do another book better. We'll have that wisdom. So how it could be a business cycle, you know, start a cafe, what's the vision, what's the cafe going to be, commit, signing the lease, we found the cafe, then we're opening, we need to get customers, we're serving the food, we're growing. Fire would be when it starts to sell itself. People are coming, there's something memorable happening there. They're going off telling their friends, oh yeah, and then maybe even better, they're bringing their friends. Let's meet at this new cafe. I really love it. You know, the feng shui is amazing, whatever it is. And they're getting people into the cafe for you. So that's the fire energy. And then earth would be, again, the quality, proving the food, the service, the staff training, and trying to develop repeat customers, people who become regulars. New customers would be more on this left side with the word, you know, bringing people in for the first time and attracting them that way, and the fire too, but keeping them, turning a sort of curious customer into a regular one, that's on the right side. And then at some point, we've got to start making money. If it's a cafe, we probably spend a huge amount of our own money before it's working well. And we need to make profits. We need to get that money back somehow. And even better, if we get the money back and we're still making money, you know, it's becoming sustainable and has the potential to last for many, many years. And then again, of course, we have the wisdom that we acquire. Something different, we could apply it to relationships. You know, I think before puberty, maybe when we're 7, 8, 9, we had these feelings of love and attraction. For me, I think it was my dog at the time, Hugo, but it could be someone at school, it could be a fictitious character, Tintin or whoever. You know, we're going to have these feelings of love and have kind of loving relationships, but they're not sexual at this point, pre-puberty. Kissing's a bit weird, but you know, kissing with tongues would be disgusting when you're 8 or 9. Most children don't really want to try that. But after puberty, once we get into this northeast mountain earth phase, then we have desire and we are open to intimate experiences, and maybe we actually crave them and we really want to try kissing and so forth. Then from there, we're meeting people, very easy if we're at school, much harder if we're an adult. But we're meeting lots of people, school, college, university. And in those environments, it's easy to get to know people. Again, older people who are single and want to be in a relationship, I think this is probably the hardest phase. How do we meet people and how do we get to know them? You know, if you're working with someone and you see them every day, it's happening automatically. If you were in a club of some kind and going every week, more chance you're going to get to know someone because you're seeing them frequently. Otherwise, you know, internet dating, you have to try and get to know people really quickly and let them get to know you. But anyway, if this wood phase goes well, we meet people and some of them we get to know and we like, hopefully we then cross over to the fire phase, we fall in love, and if they fall in love with us, then we've got a relationship. And you know, I think for a lot of people that South fire chi is and the love is you know, as good as it gets. It's not always sustainable, it can be very intense, but anyway. And sometimes we do stupid things in that phase, you know, things that we wouldn't normally do, particularly in our more metal phase. But anyway, so from there, if the relationship's full of passion and excitement and love, we might start thinking, well, the next step is living together. That would be this Southwest Earth. That's, you know, sharing a home, perhaps starting a family. But it's that feeling of, you know, being together more and greater stability. Generally, we could think of houses as as a whole is having earth energy. They're made of bricks from the earth. They're sitting on the earth. They have a foundation in the earth. So that's quite apt. The metal would be that kind of feeling that you can be totally committed to each other. We think of the metal as inward energy, but if it's for two people, they're coming in together, and it's where you feel totally committed to the other party, and that you're more than happy to be with him or her for the rest of your life. There's no other sort of possibilities or distractions. You can completely focus on the other person. And maybe out of that, a sort of mutual wisdom develops where you can achieve more together than the sum of your individual parts, as we say. So we can take this cycle. Remember, it's always based on nature. It's just a natural cycle. It's all going on all around us in nature. Plants are sprouting, growing, etc., coming into flower, seeding. It's our world. It's what we live in. It's nature, and as we're nature, it's us too. These cycles are going on inside us all the time, even on a cellular level, we might say. But so in a sense, we are these cycles, and if we can understand them, I think we get a better sense of where we want to go, where we need to go. And if we're trying to achieve something that seems a long way off, we get a better sense of the steps we need to go through to get to that place we want to be. So we can take our map, our energy map, if you want to call it that, and we can put it on top of a floor plan, and that would tell us more about the space. So in this case, we've got, so remember, we have to turn it and align it. So here north is pointing down the page. If north is at the top, we turn it around so that this north is at the top of the page. So in this particular one, the east, the rising morning sun, that blue frequency light is coming in here, big double doors in the window, into the kitchen, eating and living room area. So that would have more of this upward energy. Actually, be very nice for starting the day, active, inspiring, optimistic, what am I going to do? Let me make a list, and feeling positive about the day. So that would be energy coming in from the east. It doesn't really have much of the south. There's no windows here, and it's not really represented on the floor plan, nor is the opposite, the water. So we could say that these two energies would be weaker in this particular place. Now, that doesn't matter. If someone's living there and perfectly happy, great. But if they are feeling, I'm doing all this work with my wood energy, but I'm not really getting noticed, the fire's not happening, I'm not getting, people aren't crediting me with what I'm doing. So then our objective would be, how do we build up this fire energy for this person in this home? Similarly, if someone wasn't sleeping well, or they were feeling that their healing energy wasn't working as well as it could, then we would have to think, how could we increase the water? But it doesn't have to be that way, because there are other factors that can change everything. So the bedroom is situated facing west, big window, lots of western energy coming in, and the doorway. So that metal energy, if you remember, that's the evening leading into the night and sleep. That's good for sleep. So one would think this bedroom's going to work really well, that the metal's going to feed the water of the sleep, and that would be great. As it happens, this bed, when someone's lying there, the top of their head is pointing south. And during sleep, where this sort of crown chakra is, we think more chi enters. So they would absorb a bit more of that missing fire energy with the bed in this position. Fire energy can be not great for sleep, but if the person's a deep sleeper and sleeping in this room well anyway, that fire energy coming to the top of the head's not affecting them then negatively, then it would be a positive. If they were able to sit here facing south, again, might help. Or they would just put in lots of colorful fresh flowers, use strong colors, and increase the fire. Water, it could be blues and water features, and a place for meditation, and or maybe very relaxing pictures of nature. All those would then increase the water energy for the person in this space if they needed it. Similarly, we can put the same map on top of a person, a little like we did with the 5 elements. We end up with different areas of the person and different parts of the cycle relating to different parts of the body. So this fiery, summery, sunny midday would be the top. You know, the top of the body would have more of that energy. Down at the bottom would be more the water. Then we could, don't need that one right now. We could apply it to emotions. I think often we experience chi emotionally. If we go to a building and feel different, we're probably going to describe it in an emotional way. Oh, well, you know, when I'm here, I feel kind of excited and inspired. Somewhere else, you know, this is a great place to relax and I feel calm and I can just sit here and read a book, and I just feel like I've suddenly rested and got my energy back and so on. So this water north is more peaceful, meditative. Northeast mountain is the vision, the looking, you know, imagine being on top of a mountain and having that big vision and clarity. The east could be more quick and reactive, more proactive, etc. Southeast would be more creative and active. South would be more passion and emotions and love. Southwest, more stability, being more careful, more secure. West would be joy, that's that sort of, and contentment, that feeling. You've been working as a farmer hard, getting the crops ready. You have the harvest and then this great bumper crop and you've got it all in the barn. And it would be that kind of feeling. Wisdom, intuition, that would be the Northwest. And then the center is feeling more centered and having a sort of magnetic quality, attracting attention more. So when we want to feel more of these, we just simply try and bring in more of that chi into our being, into our life. How do we do that? We could use colors. I won't read through them all, but you can see that they kind of work with nature if you think of the seasons and the day cycle. You can use specific feng shui solutions, water features, crystals, plants I mentioned. We're very, I think, easily affected or influenced by images, messages, quotations, affirmations, colors. If we use very bright colors, imagine a field full of wild flowers, you know, that would give us that fiery energy in the summer. Fabrics, we think curtains, big cushions, sofas would be more our earth of the Southwest. And then we can use coins, things that symbolize metal. Stones would be a typical one to use to bring in more of that feeling of the metal. Clocks I like to use with metal. It gives us a sense of time and organization. If you have a big clock on the wall, you're always seeing where you are in the day. Okay, I've got 2 hours left, or whatever it is. And I think I mentioned water features. So we can adjust our homes. We could adjust ourselves. We can do more meditation for the water energy. We can do the resolutions for the mountain earth. For the wood, we can be more exercise and active or positive thinking. Fire, we can be more expressive, you know, be social, or if we're a bit shy, you know, have a therapist we can talk to. Then we can, Southwest would be healthy eating, receiving massages, all those kinds of things. And the metal west and northwest would be more things like yoga, tai chi, martial arts, and so forth. So we can take on activities to change our energy. With foods, we can use different tastes, which are all here. I'll just mention umami, the others are obvious. Umami is a kind of savory fermented food that you might have tried with noodles in broth. That's often given as an example. And that's considered the taste of metal in the 5 elements. Here would be examples of possible ingredients. Of course, it depends how we cook them and season them, but as a generalization, this would be the different ones. And then we would come to how we cook them, so we can change these foods hugely, like we saw on the yin-yang chart, by which cooking method we apply to them. And so with the combination of this one and this one, we can start to create dishes or parts of dishes that will have a stronger energy that we're looking for. So we're coming to the end of the class. If you want to ask questions, you can feel free to email me. There's more information on my website. Most of the time, I'm teaching online courses on feng shui, a whole year's training, similar on macrobiotic health coaching. So if you're interested in those subjects, let me know and I'll send you details and answer questions. Or if you have any questions about the class today, feel free to contact me. And just to sum up, to me, why do I like this, use it, teach it? It's the best way. I've studied lots of different things and philosophies. I like science a lot and chakras and all kinds of things. But to me, so far, it's the most complete perspective of life, because we're using nature herself to try and understand ourselves and our relationships to everything else beyond us. And if we can understand those things and get a perspective in terms of time and space, then we start to realize that there's things that we can do to help ourselves along in life, to get to the next place we want to be, the next step, or maybe sometimes more drastic, a big transformation, so that we can embrace a whole new set of possibilities for ourselves and a whole new range of things that we can move into. And it's not the answer to everything. And like anything else, it's not something I would ever encourage people to get obsessed with. Definitely don't want to limit ourselves by any of these things, but I think it's a very helpful tool to have in our toolbox, a very helpful way of looking at life sometimes when we need to get a different set of answers. It's always the same. If we take on a different way of thinking, a different perception, other solutions start to appear. So if we feel like we're not getting the solutions we need, then we need to just change our perception, the way we think. And one way would be with yin yang and the 5 elements. So thank you for listening if you got this far, and wishing you all the very best. Thanks a lot.